Spiky hair.
That means? Well, spiky. Sometimes also known as Ted. All right, I would like to set a more conciliatory tone because everybody in this room is here because you care about community. We just have a different vision of how to get there. And I suggest that a big part of the problem is we do things differently. And we have different ideas about what's expedient and what's not expedient. So I completely get what you said about Kathy and her role. And I hated like hell to see her get fired. Because she was one of the, I thought, one of the pillars. But I never worked there. I don't know. I only have a limited view. But what I want to say is we need to get on the same page with the goal. You know, what we're trying to accomplish here is a community-based operation. And frankly, I got to say this to the board. It's messy. It's difficult. It takes a long time. And you're going to feel sometimes like, what the hell am I doing here? It is, in order to make it work for everybody, and these people are volunteers. They were spending hours and hours and hours. I've listened to workers. I've listened to the board. I'm an investor, and I've listened to investors. We all have a different perspective, but if you haven't listened for hours to the board, you don't get where they're coming from. And if you haven't listened for hours to the workers, you don't get where they're coming from. And we all would do a lot better to listen to each other and say, all right, how can we work forward on our mutual goals? I don't like to see this division and this conflict. It's not the way I like to operate, although I can mix it up. But why don't we just say, what we're going to do here is work it out peacefully and kind. We are going to be assertive. We're going to insist on being heard, but we are going to respect and not make personal assaults, and we're going to be kind, and because that's what a co-op is.
Matt? I don't know where I got that name from.
First question.
Oh, Matt.
Are you Matt?
Yeah, you're Matt. Go for it. I got you, Matt. Go for it.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, I have been a member of a co-op before, or a worker owner, and I ended up being separated from the co-op that I was working at. I don't want to explain why, but it was a very strange situation where most people agreed that it wasn't right for me to be separated from my job, and because I was part of the union, I was able to be involved with an interview with Human Resources with union representation so that I knew what all my rights were. I was able to get good advice. And so that's, I think, is an issue that for employees that could be in a weird situation who might lose their job, instead of just like, a manager giving them the boot, even though people might disagree with them, that they have the right to union representation so that they can fight for their job. I ended up being separated, but I was actually in mutual agreement with the reason why I was separated. So that also gives me an advantage for applying to new jobs because I don't have to put that I was fired or terminated from my last job. Mutual agreement helps me get another job. Also, with the workers making demands, I agree that they should not make demands, that the democratic process should always be honored. That's all I have to say.
Gretchen.
So, taking notes as we go along, there's a lot that's been said, and this really strikes to my heart. I'm a little bit emotional about it. I apologize. I'm a little pregnant. I think that what has upset me the most in watching all this play out is see people that I love on all sides just not talking to each other. The first time I heard of any of the workers' complaints was in a public email to the entire membership. And I just feel like if I had heard any of those before and known any of them, I would have bent over backwards to try to fix them. And so it's hard to hear all this and know that there are steps we could have taken if we would communicate with each other. And I just ask for that now and going forward. I think a great idea would be for the worker owners, the management, the board, everyone who feels like there is a grievance to sit down with the facilitator, with the AFL-CIO lawyer who has experience about the legalities. Like, no one, I heard this, but no one up here said they were hiring a lawyer to bust the union at all. Like, we want to figure out how could that work within our co-op structure. Does it mean that you can still be a worker owner member with a representative on the board and also be in a union? Like, that's a great question to ask. And it doesn't mean we're against it. It's like trying to figure out the legalities of it. I just want to make it clear that everyone up here wants to hear and respect and listen to every single person in the co-op and every worker. And sometimes that's hard to do when you have a full-time job and you're doing this voluntarily and there's 1,000 people who want to talk to you.
Lucian.
Yeah, so, nobody likes to lose their job. Nobody who ever has, I think, thought it was warranted. You know, when we inherited this, when the board inherited, it had the co-op, it had 4 managers. It was a lateral structure. It's very hard to make changes, very hard to make personnel changes. In those first 21 months that we were in business, we lost $3,700 a month. So going to last year, the first part of the year, we lost $2,700 for the first 3 months. Then we hired a general manager, had a vertical structure rather than a lateral structure where, you know, the workers could figure out, decide things for themselves. And in that period of 6 months, we only lost $100 a month. So then he left, and then we had a 3-month period with an interim manager, which kind of went back to like, you know, the workers running the store again, lost $1,500 a month. Now, in our first month of having a general manager who can make personnel changes and make, you know, real changes to get the store running, we have a $1,900 plus this month. So we lost $100,000. What are we going to do about it? I mean, I think, you know, this is a little bit to me like we're shuffling the deck chairs on a Titanic. We're going down, folks. And it's our job to figure out how to stop that. What we're figuring out is how we're going to get the money. That's what we've done the whole time. How do we replace $3,000 a month? And the workers, they say, well, what about our raise, you know, schedule? Well, you know, we haven't asked for any pay cuts, and we have a really good pay rate, and we haven't asked for that. When I was started losing money, my workers came to me and said, volunteered to take a pay cut. And here we are, we're just like, we're on the verge of going out of business, you know? So let's have 2 sides that are in opposition to each other in a co-op. Anybody think that makes sense?
Plaid hat and back.
Who, me?
Mm-hmm.
Mine's Jordan, and I drug medical. Hoping some of y'all buy them, but you don't. I signed up for the co-op in the fall of 2008, and I had a lot of real good, a lot of expectations for it, you know. But I think after the first year, a lot of that sort of went away. It's sort of been kind of up and down over the time, but we all have gotten the emails, and we've all have heard about supporting the co-op and shopping here and doing whatever we can. And again, you know, it is because it's something that we believe in. You know, I personally like the idea. On the producer end, I don't feel like we've had really very much transparency or work with the people who we directly deal with. I mean, it's kind of like every other store. And to hear some things that the workers say, that too sounds kind of like every other store. So you do got to get something to pull it back together, because it has to be different. Because that is what you're selling, more than groceries and cabbage and all the other things. You're selling something different. And you have to be able to pull that together. Well, like you said, Lucian, it's done. You know, I've had good experiences with co-op, and I've had bad experiences with co-op. And I feel confident that we can move together. And also, I'm an employer, I have employees. There's workplace that's gonna mutually benefit both of them. That's what we do. I have 6 employees. I'm sure Marty would like to talk to you more about that set of standards that was developed for food businesses.
Amy? Amy?
Oh, okay, how's that? Yeah, I've been listening so hard. Okay, well, real quick, I just will follow up on something that Gretchen said about, not having heard that there were any issues. We actually had heard some, questions about, pay transparency and wanting, we talked about at another meeting that Lisa is working on an actual process for evaluations, a pay rate schedule. These are things that are in progress, and we did have, we have had the worker owner representative say, well, worker owners, would like some of these things, and they are things that we have addressed. When people have asked for more financial information, we've said, hey, we email everybody the same things that the board of directors gets, that the financial manager gets, and it's posted in the co-op. When there wanted to be more, when people wanted more transparency on the minutes, we made a motion to speed up the process by which we approve the minutes so that we could get them out to people faster. It can't happen overnight. It's a group of people, and we're doing what we can. We meet every 2 weeks. We meet for 2 hours, and that's a lot more than any other board that I've served on. Most boards meet once a month. So we did not realize at all that people were this, upset to this degree, but because it just was never stated in that way, it just never was. But when concerns had been raised and brought to board meetings by a worker owner representative, we did try to do what we could, in the midst of all the other things that we have going on. So I just want to say that, and I do want to, yeah, I'm good. So.